I never thought I would be sitting alone in a foreign country, staring at my husband's photograph, wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old. And this is the story of how I lost everything I thought mattered, only to discover something far more important than I ever imagined. When David died, I thought my world had ended. We had been married for 38 years. 38 years of building a life together, raising our children, planning our future. And then one morning, he simply didn't wake up. A heart attack. Silent. Swift. Final. I remember standing at his funeral, surrounded by people, yet feeling completely alone. Our son Michael held my hand. Our daughter Sarah stood on my other side. But I couldn't feel them. I couldn't feel anything except this enormous emptiness where David used to be. Everyone tells you that grief gets easier with time. They say you'll learn to live with it, that the pain will fade, that you'll find a new normal. But what they don't tell you is how long those first days feel. How every morning you wake up and, for just a moment, you forget. And then you remember. And it breaks you all over again. I thought I knew what my life would look like after David died. I thought I would move in with Michael and his wife, Rebecca. I thought I would help with the grandchildren. I thought I would slowly fade into the background of their lives, a sad old woman mourning her husband until it was her time to go. But life had other plans for me. Plans I never could have imagined. Plans that would take me thousands of miles from home, into the hearts of strangers, into a purpose I didn't know I was searching for. This is not a story about loss. Well, it is. But it's also about finding yourself when you thought there was nothing left to find. It's about discovering that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead you to the best thing you'll ever do. So let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you how a widow from Ohio ended up changing lives halfway around the world. David and I met when we were 23 years old. He was working at his father's hardware store, and I had just finished my nursing degree. I came in one day looking for light bulbs for my apartment, and he spent 45 minutes helping me choose the right ones. 45 minutes for light bulbs. I should have known then that he was something special. We married a year later, in a small church ceremony with just our families and closest friends. Nothing fancy. Just two people promising to love each other for the rest of their lives. And we did. We really did. We had Michael first, then Sarah 3 years later. David worked hard at the hardware store, eventually taking it over when his father retired. I went back to nursing part-time when the children started school. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house with a backyard where the kids played. We weren't rich, but we were happy. We were content. The years passed the way they do. Slowly at first, then all at once. Michael grew up and became an accountant. He married Rebecca, a teacher he met at a friend's wedding. Sarah became a doctor, moved to Seattle, married a man named Thomas. We became grandparents. Life was good. Life was full. David and I talked often about retirement. We had plans, so many plans. We wanted to travel. He had always wanted to see Ireland, the land of his grandparents. I wanted to visit Italy, to see the art I'd only ever seen in books. We were going to take a cruise. We were going to visit Sarah in Seattle for a whole month. We were going to finally have time, just the two of us, after all those years of working and raising children. But we waited. We kept saying, next year. Next year we'll go. Next year we'll have more money saved. Next year the store will be in a better position. There's always a next year, until there isn't. David retired at 65. We had 2 years. Just 2 years of him being home, of us having breakfast together every morning, of taking walks in the evening, of finally having that time we'd always talked about. We went to Ireland. We took that cruise. We visited Sarah. And then he was gone. The morning he died was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday was always grocery shopping day. I woke up at 6:30 like always. I turned to wake David, and he was still sleeping. I remember thinking how peaceful he looked. I remember smiling, deciding to let him sleep a little longer. I went downstairs to make coffee. 30 minutes later, I went back upstairs with his coffee, and I knew. Even before I touched him, even before I called his name, something in me knew. He hadn't been sleeping. He had been gone. The doctors said it was quick. They said he didn't suffer. They said it was the best way to go if you have to go. But I didn't care about the best way. I just wanted him back. The funeral was a blur. So many people came. David had been loved in our community, respected. The hardware store had been a fixture in our town for 50 years. People shared stories about him, about his kindness, his humor, his generous spirit. And I stood there, nodding, smiling, thanking them, while inside I was screaming. After the funeral, Michael and Rebecca sat me down. They were worried about me, they said. They didn't think I should be alone in the house. They had the space. They had a guest room that was really more like a suite, with its own bathroom. The grandchildren would love having me close. It made sense, they said. I didn't know what else to do, so I said yes. I sold the house David and I had lived in for 34 years. I packed up our life into boxes. I kept what I needed, donated what I could, and moved into my son's home. At first, it seemed like the right decision. Rebecca was kind. She helped me organize my room. She made sure I felt welcome. Michael would sit with me in the evenings, and we'd look through old photo albums. The grandchildren, Emma who was 8 and Jack who was 6, they brought some light into my darkness. But slowly things began to change. Or maybe they didn't change. Maybe I just began to notice. The first few months living with Michael and Rebecca were an adjustment. For all of us, I think. I tried to be helpful without being in the way. I tried to respect that this was their home, not mine. I tried to remember that I was the guest. I would wake up early before everyone else and make breakfast. Pancakes for the children. Coffee ready when Michael came downstairs. A small way to contribute, to earn my keep, though Michael always said I didn't need to do that. "Mom, you're not a burden," he would say. "This is your home too." But it didn't feel like my home. I had my room, yes, but it was just a room. The photos on the walls were Rebecca's choices. The furniture was Rebecca's style. The rules, the routines, they were all theirs. And I was just living inside them. Rebecca started making small comments. Nothing mean, nothing angry. Just little observations. "Margaret, the children are fine with cereal for breakfast," she said one morning. "You don't have to cook every day." "I don't mind," I told her. "I like cooking for them." "I know, but it sets expectations. They're going to expect it all the time, and when you can't do it, they'll be disappointed." I stopped making breakfast every day. I made it twice a week, then once a week, then not at all. I tried helping with laundry. I folded clothes while watching television in the evening. But Rebecca had a specific way she liked things folded. She showed me very patiently how she preferred it done. "It's just easier if they stack right in the drawers," she explained. "This way saves space." I tried to fold them her way, but my hands are old. They don't work as precisely as they used to. She would refold them after me, not saying anything, but I could see her doing it. Eventually, I stopped helping with laundry. I spent time with Emma and Jack. I loved them so much. They reminded me of Michael and Sarah when they were small. I would read to them, play games with them, help them with their homework. But Rebecca had rules about screen time, about bedtime, about what they could eat and when they could have it. I gave Jack a cookie once, at 4 in the afternoon. "Margaret," Rebecca said, pulling me aside, "we don't do snacks after 3:30. It ruins their appetite for dinner." "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't know." "It's okay," she said. "Just please ask me first before giving them anything." I felt like a child being scolded. I felt like I couldn't do anything right in this house. The worst part was, I knew Rebecca wasn't trying to be cruel. She wasn't a bad person. She was just a woman trying to run her household in the way she thought was best. And I was disrupting that. My presence was disrupting that. I started spending more time in my room. I would read. I would watch television. I would sit by the window and just stare outside, watching the world go by, feeling like I was no longer part of it. Michael noticed. He came to my room one evening, knocked softly on the door. "Mom, can I come in?" "Of course, sweetheart." He sat on the edge of my bed. He looked tired. He looked older than his 40 years. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I lied. "You seem sad. More than usual, I mean. More than just missing Dad." "I'm adjusting," I said. It just takes time. Rebecca says you've been keeping to yourself more. She's worried she did something to upset you. I shook my head quickly. No. Rebecca has been wonderful. You both have. I'm just trying to give you your space. This is your family, your home. I don't want to be in the way. You're not in the way, Mom. You're part of this family. But I didn't feel like part of the family. I felt like an obligation they were fulfilling. A duty. The widow mother who needed to be taken care of. Months passed. 6 months. 8 months. A year. I sank deeper into my grief and deeper into my isolation. I barely spoke at dinner. I rarely left my room except for meals. I felt myself disappearing, becoming a ghost in my own life. Sarah called me every week from Seattle. She would ask how I was doing, and I would tell her I was fine. I didn't tell her how lonely I felt. I didn't tell her that sometimes I wished David had taken me with him. I didn't tell her that I didn't know who I was anymore without him. One day, I was sitting in the living room, reading a book, when Emma came home from school crying. She had gotten in trouble with her teacher for talking in class. Rebecca was at work, and Michael wasn't home yet. Emma threw herself into my arms, sobbing. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said, holding her. "Everyone makes mistakes." "Mrs. Henderson was so mean," Emma cried. "She yelled at me in front of everyone." "I'm sure she didn't mean to be mean," I said. "Teachers sometimes have to be strict. But that doesn't mean she doesn't care about you." I made Emma some hot chocolate. We talked about her day, about her friends, about her favorite subjects. By the time Rebecca got home, Emma was smiling again, doing her homework at the kitchen table. Rebecca seemed pleased. She thanked me for being there for Emma. For a moment, I felt useful. I felt like maybe I did belong here after all. But that night, I overheard them talking. Their bedroom was next to my room. The walls were thin. "Your mother was great with Emma today," Rebecca said. "See, I told you this would work out," Michael replied. "I know. I just worry sometimes. About how long this arrangement is going to last. I mean, she's only 63. She could live another 20, 30 years. There was a pause. "I know," Michael said quietly. "I'm not saying I don't love her," Rebecca continued. "I do. But this is our home. And sometimes it feels like we can't fully relax, can't fully be ourselves, because she's here. She's my mother, Beck. What am I supposed to do? Put her in a home? No, of course not. I'm just saying. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm tired. Forget it." I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, my heart breaking in a new way. I was a burden. I was an imposition. I was preventing my son and his wife from being happy in their own home. I thought about David. I thought about how he would know what to do. He always knew what to do. He would put his hand on my back and say, "We'll figure it out, Maggie." We always do. But David wasn't here. And I had to figure it out on my own. I started looking at retirement communities. Small apartments where seniors could live independently but have help if they needed it. The prices shocked me. Even with the money from selling the house, even with David's life insurance, I couldn't afford most of them. Not for 20 or 30 years. I felt trapped. I felt like I was drowning and no one could see it happening. Then one Sunday something changed. Something that would change everything. It was a regular Sunday morning. We went to church like we did most weeks. I sat in the pew next to Michael and Rebecca, with Emma and Jack fidgeting beside us. The pastor, Reverend Thompson, gave a sermon about service, about looking beyond ourselves, about making a difference in the world. After the service, there was a missions presentation. A woman named Patricia stood at the front of the church, showing pictures on a projector screen. Pictures of children in a place called Uganda. Children with bright smiles despite their torn clothes. Children sitting in dirt floor classrooms. Children drinking from wells that had been built by church donations. Patricia talked about the orphanage she worked with. About children who had lost their parents to disease, to poverty, to war. About how these children needed education, medical care, love, and hope. She talked about volunteer opportunities, about mission trips, about ways people could help. I sat there looking at those children's faces, and something stirred inside me. Something I hadn't felt in over a year. A purpose. A pull towards something beyond my own sadness. After church, while Michael and Rebecca talked with friends, I approached Patricia. "Excuse me," I said. "I'd like to know more about the volunteer opportunities." Patricia's face lit up. She was probably in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair and warm brown eyes. She looked like someone who had seen suffering, but chose joy anyway. "Of course," she said. "Are you interested in a short-term mission trip? We have one planned for next summer." Actually, I heard myself saying, I was wondering about something longer term, something more permanent. Patricia studied me for a moment. "Have you done mission work before?" "No," I admitted. "But I was a nurse for 30 years. And I have time now. A lot of time." We talked for 20 minutes. She told me about the orphanage, about the medical clinic they ran, about the desperate need for medical professionals who could volunteer long-term. Most volunteers came for 2 weeks, maybe a month. But what they really needed were people who could commit to 6 months, a year longer. "The children need stability," Patricia explained. "They need familiar faces, people they can trust who won't leave them like everyone else has." She gave me her card, her email address, the orphanage's website. "Think about it," she said. "Pray about it. If you're serious, we can talk more." I drove home with Michael and Rebecca, the card burning in my pocket. I didn't mention it. I wasn't sure why. Maybe because I was afraid they'd talk me out of it. Maybe because I was afraid they'd be too supportive, too eager to have their space back. That night, alone in my room, I looked at the orphanage's website. I read stories of the children. I looked at pictures of the clinic, small but clean, serving hundreds of people every week. I read about the volunteers who had gone before, about the lives they'd touched, about how the experience had changed them. I looked at David's photograph on my nightstand. "What do you think?" I whispered to him. "Is this crazy?" In my heart, I knew what he would say. He would say that life is too short to spend it being afraid. He would say that we're meant to use our gifts to help others. He would say, "Go, Maggie. Go and do something beautiful." I emailed Patricia that night. I told her I was interested. I told her about my nursing background, about my situation, about my need to do something meaningful with the years I had left. I sent the email before I could change my mind. She responded the next morning. She asked if we could set up a phone call to discuss details. We talked for 2 hours. She was honest about the challenges. The living conditions were basic. The work was hard. The emotional toll of working with traumatized children was significant. But she was also honest about the rewards, about the joy, about the purpose. "I won't lie to you, Margaret," she said. "This will be one of the hardest things you've ever done, but it will also be one of the most meaningful." "I want to do it," I said. "I need to do it. Then let's make it happen." The process moved quickly after that. There were applications to fill out, background checks to complete, medical clearances to obtain, fundraising to consider, though Patricia said the orphanage could provide room and board in exchange for my medical services. I would need money for the flight, for personal expenses, for emergencies. But it was doable. It was actually doable. I waited 2 weeks before telling Michael and Rebecca. I needed to be sure. I needed to know this wasn't just a grief-driven impulse, but a real calling, a real choice. I told them at dinner one evening. I tried to sound confident, matter of fact. "I've been thinking about my future," I began, "about what I want to do with my life. And I've made a decision." They looked at me, waiting. "I'm going to Uganda, to volunteer at an orphanage, to use my nursing skills where they're desperately needed." The silence was thick. Michael put down his fork. Rebecca's eyes went wide. "What?" Michael said. "Mom, you can't be serious." "I am serious. I've been in contact with the organization. Everything is arranged. I leave in 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Rebecca said. "Margaret, this is so sudden." "You can't just go to Africa," Michael said, his voice rising. "You're 63 years old. You don't know anyone there. You don't know what you're getting into." "I know exactly what I'm getting into," I said calmly. "I've done my research. I've talked extensively with the organization. This is what I want to do." "For how long?" Michael asked. "A week. 2 weeks. 6 months initially. Maybe longer if it goes well." Michael stood up, running his hands through his hair. "This is insane. This is grief talking. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in a year, I said. Michael, I appreciate everything you and Rebecca have done for me. I do. But I can't live like this anymore. I can't sit in that room, day after day, slowly fading away. I need purpose. I need to feel alive again. Rebecca reached across the table, touching my hand. We understand that, Margaret. We do. But there are other ways. You could volunteer locally. You could go back to nursing here. You don't have to go halfway around the world. But I want to, I said. This feels right. For the first time since David died, something feels right. Michael was pacing now. What if something happens to you? What if you get sick? What if there's an emergency? Then I'll deal with it. Michael, I'm not a child. I'm a grown woman who spent 30 years taking care of other people. I can take care of myself. Does Sarah know about this? I'm calling her tonight. Michael sat back down, his head in his hands. I can't support this, Mom. I think you're making a huge mistake. His words hurt, but I had expected them. I'm not asking for your support, I said gently. I'm just telling you what I've decided. I hope that eventually you'll understand. The rest of the dinner was eaten in silence. Emma and Jack sensed the tension, stayed quiet. After we cleaned up, I went to my room and called Sarah. Sarah's reaction was different. She listened to everything I had to say, and then she was quiet for a moment. Mom, she finally said, I think this is amazing. You do? Yes. I've been so worried about you. You've seemed so lost. And now you sound alive. You sound like yourself again. I started crying. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone to understand. Michael thinks I'm crazy, I said through my tears. Michael is scared. He's scared of losing you like he lost Dad. But you're right. You can't live your life trying to make everyone else comfortable. If this is what you need to do, then do it. Sarah's support gave me courage. Over the next 6 weeks, I prepared. I got vaccinations. I bought supplies. I packed my bags. I said goodbye to friends who thought I was either brave or foolish, maybe both. Michael barely spoke to me during those weeks. Rebecca tried to be supportive, but I could see the relief in her eyes. Relief that she would have her home back, her routine back, her life back. The night before I left, Michael came to my room. He sat on my bed like he had done a year ago, but this time he looked different. He looked like a scared little boy. I don't want you to go, he said softly. I know. I'm afraid I'll never see you again. I took his hand. You'll see me again. I promise. This isn't forever. It's just something I need to do. I don't understand it. You don't have to understand it, sweetheart. You just have to accept it. He hugged me then, tight and long. I love you, Mom. I love you too. So much. The next morning, Michael and Rebecca drove me to the airport. Emma and Jack came too. We said our goodbyes at the curb. Emma cried. Jack gave me a drawing he'd made of our family. Michael held me one more time. Be safe, he whispered. I will. And then I walked into the airport, alone, heading towards something unknown, something frightening, something necessary. The flight to Uganda took over 20 hours, with layovers in New York and Amsterdam. I had never traveled internationally alone before. David had always handled the logistics, the directions, the planning. But I managed. I figured things out. And with each step, I felt a little stronger. Patricia met me at the airport in Entebbe. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She hugged me like we were old friends. Welcome to Uganda, she said, smiling. Ready for this? Ready as I'll ever be. The drive to the orphanage took 3 hours, on roads that were sometimes paved and sometimes just red dirt. We passed through small villages, past markets bustling with people, past landscapes so beautiful they took my breath away. Green hills, bright flowers, a sky so blue it seemed impossible. The orphanage was called Hope Haven. It was a collection of simple buildings surrounded by a fence, with a yard where children were playing soccer with a deflated ball. When we pulled up, children came running, shouting, Auntie Patricia! Auntie Patricia! They surrounded her, hugging her, laughing, talking all at once in a mix of English and Luganda. And then they noticed me. They became shy, hiding behind Patricia, peeking at me with curious eyes. "Everyone," Patricia said. "This is Auntie Margaret. She's come all the way from America to help us. She's a nurse, and she's going to work in our clinic." A small girl, maybe 6 years old, stepped forward. She looked up at me with the biggest brown eyes I'd ever seen. "Hello, Auntie Margaret," she said quietly. "Hello, sweetheart," I said, kneeling down to her level. "What's your name?" "Grace." "That's a beautiful name." She smiled, and something in my heart shifted. Something that had been closed for so long began to open. The first few weeks were overwhelming. I was adjusting to the heat, to the food, to the language, to the constant noise of 30 children living together. I was learning the routine of the clinic, seeing patients with diseases I'd only read about in textbooks. Malaria, tuberculosis, severe malnutrition, infections that should have been simple to treat, but had become life-threatening due to lack of access to basic medical care. I was exhausted every night. My body ached. My heart ached. I saw suffering on a scale I'd never witnessed in my comfortable Ohio life. There were moments I questioned what I'd done. Moments I wanted to call Michael and say, "You were right. This was a mistake. Come get me." But then there were other moments. Moments that made everything worthwhile. Like when little Grace started following me everywhere. She would hold my hand as we walked from the clinic to the main building. She would sit next to me at meals. She would bring me flowers she'd picked from the yard. "I like you, Auntie Margaret," she said one day. "I like you too, Grace. Will you stay forever?" My heart broke a little. I don't know about forever, but I'll stay as long as I can. "My mother went to heaven," she said matter-of-factly. "Do you think she can see me from there?" I pulled her close. "I know she can, and I know she's so proud of you." I learned the stories of these children. Most had lost their parents to AIDS. Some had been abandoned. Some had been found on the streets. All of them had known loss, had known pain, had known what it meant to be alone. And yet they laughed. They played. They sang. They had a resilience, a joy, that humbled me. They had every reason to be bitter, to be angry, to give up. But they chose hope instead. I thought about my own grief. My comfortable grief. Yes, I had lost David. Yes, my heart was broken. But I had never been hungry. I had never wondered where I would sleep. I had never been truly alone. These children taught me that grief and joy can coexist. That you can carry loss while still choosing to live fully. That life doesn't stop being beautiful just because it's also hard. In the clinic, I worked alongside a local nurse named Esther. She was 35, smart, dedicated, and one of the kindest people I'd ever met. She had been running the clinic mostly alone before I arrived, seeing 50 or 60 patients a day with limited supplies and no backup. "You are an answer to prayer," she told me during my first week. "I have been asking God for help, and He sent you." "I'm not sure God sent me," I said. "I think I was just running away from my own life." "Sometimes running toward one thing means running away from another," she said wisely. "Either way, you are here. And you are needed." We fell into a rhythm, Esther and I. She taught me about local diseases, local remedies, local customs. I taught her some newer medical techniques, some organizational systems. We learned from each other. We became friends. The months passed. I video called Michael and Sarah regularly. Sarah was always encouraging. Michael slowly warmed up to the idea, especially when I sent him photos of the children, of the clinic, of the work we were doing. "You look happy, Mom," he said during one call, and he sounded surprised. "I am happy," I realized. "I'm tired and overwhelmed, and sometimes I cry myself to sleep. But I'm happy." After 3 months, Patricia asked me if I would consider staying longer than 6 months. "We've never had someone with your skill level willing to commit long-term," she said. "You're making such a difference here. The clinic is running better than it ever has. The children adore you. Would you consider a year? Maybe 18 months? I thought about it for exactly 1 day before I said yes. The work was hard, but it was meaningful. Every life we saved, every child we treated, every person we helped, it mattered. It mattered in a way that was tangible and immediate. There was no bureaucracy, no insurance paperwork, no politics. Just need and response, problem and solution, hurt and healing. I celebrated my 64th birthday at Hope Haven. The children threw me a party. They sang to me in Uganda. Grace made me a card with a crayon drawing of the two of us holding hands. I cried happy tears, something I didn't think was possible anymore. During my 8th month, we had a medical emergency. A 10-year-old boy named Samuel came down with cerebral malaria. His fever spiked to 105 degrees. He started having seizures. Without immediate intervention, he would die. We didn't have the facilities to treat him properly at our clinic. He needed a hospital, but the nearest one was 2 hours away, and we didn't know if he would survive the trip. I made the decision to treat him aggressively on-site, using every resource we had, every bit of knowledge I'd accumulated over 30 years of nursing. Esther and I took turns monitoring him through the night. We cooled him with wet cloths. We administered the medications we had. We prayed. By morning, his fever had broken. By afternoon, he was conscious. In a week, he was playing soccer with the other children. "You saved his life," Esther said. "We saved his life," I corrected. But I realized something in that moment. I realized that I wasn't just helping these children. They were helping me. They were showing me that life goes on, that there is still purpose after loss, that I still had something valuable to offer the world. I thought about David. I thought about how proud he would be. Not of me coming to Uganda, necessarily, but of me finding my way back to myself. Of me choosing to live instead of just existing. As my 1-year mark approached, I had to make a decision. Patricia had asked if I would stay another year. Michael and Sarah were both coming to visit for Christmas, to see where I'd been living, to meet the children I'd been telling them about. I didn't know what I would decide, but I knew that I was grateful. Grateful for this unexpected journey. Grateful for these children. Grateful for this second chance at life. It's been 3 years now since I first arrived at Hope Haven. 3 years since I walked away from my comfortable, small life and into something bigger than myself. I'm 66 years old. I've stayed far longer than I ever imagined. The orphanage has grown. We now have 43 children. The clinic has expanded. We built a second examination room. We added a small pharmacy. We've partnered with other organizations to provide dental care, vision screening, mental health services. I'm not alone anymore either. Michael and Rebecca came to visit that first Christmas, and something changed in Michael. He saw what I was doing. He saw the joy on my face. He understood finally why I needed to be here. Now he and Rebecca sponsor 2 children at Hope Haven. They send supplies. They fundraise. Michael told me last month that seeing the work here inspired him to do more in his own community. He's volunteering at a local shelter now. Sarah visits twice a year. She brings Thomas and their 2 children. My grandchildren play with the Hope Haven children, and language barriers melt away in the universal language of childhood laughter. Grace is 9 now. She's smart and funny and dreams of becoming a teacher. She still calls me Auntie Margaret, still brings me flowers, still tells me she loves me every single day. I love her too. I love all of them. People ask me sometimes if I regret my decision, if I miss my old life, and I'm honest with them. I miss David every day. I miss my children and grandchildren. I miss things about America, silly things like good coffee and reliable internet and roads without potholes. But I don't regret this. Not for a single moment. Because here's what I've learned. Grief doesn't end. It doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. It becomes part of who you are, part of your story, but it doesn't have to be the whole story. I will always be David's widow. But I'm also Auntie Margaret. I'm also a nurse serving children who have no one else. I'm also a woman who discovered that 63 is not too old to start over. That loss can lead to purpose. That the worst thing that happens to you can open the door to the best thing you'll ever do. Last week, one of our older girls, a 15-year-old named Ruth, came to me. She's planning to go to university next year to study medicine. She wants to come back and work in our clinic. "You inspired me, Auntie," she said. "You showed me that one person can make a difference. That's what I want to do with my life." I held her hand, this beautiful young woman who had lost everything but chose to build something anyway, and I realized that this is the legacy David and I created together. Not through our own children, though I'm proud of them too. But through this, through showing up, through choosing to serve, through turning grief into mission, I don't know how much longer I'll stay at Hope Haven. Maybe another year. Maybe 5. Maybe this is where I'll spend the rest of my days. I don't need to know right now. I'm learning to live in the present, to appreciate each day, to trust that life will unfold as it should. If you're reading this, if you're listening to this story, and you're going through something hard, something that feels like it might break you, I want you to know something. You're stronger than you think. And sometimes the thing that breaks you open is the thing that lets the light in. David's death broke me open, but it also let the light in. It let me see beyond my own small world. It let me discover parts of myself I never knew existed. You don't have to go to Africa to find your purpose. You don't have to do something dramatic or extraordinary. But you do have to be willing to step outside your comfort zone. You have to be willing to let go of what you thought your life would look like and embrace what it actually is. I thought my life was over when David died. I thought the best part was behind me. I thought all I had left was to slowly fade away, surrounded by sympathy and sadness. But I was wrong. The best part wasn't behind me. It was waiting for me. I just had to be brave enough to go find it. Sometimes late at night, when the children are all sleeping and the compound is quiet, I sit outside and look up at the stars. The sky here is different than it was back in Ohio. Bigger somehow. Brighter. Like there's less standing between me and infinity. I talk to David during those quiet moments. I tell him about my day. About little Grace learning to read. About Samuel, the boy with malaria who's now 12 and wants to be a doctor. About Esther, who's become like a sister to me. About the grandmother who walked 6 miles to bring her sick grandchild to our clinic, and how we were able to help them both. I tell him I'm sorry we didn't get more time together. Sorry we didn't take all those trips we planned. Sorry I couldn't save him that Tuesday morning. But I also tell him thank you. Thank you for 38 beautiful years. Thank you for teaching me about love, about partnership, about building a life that matters. Thank you for being the kind of man whose death could teach me about life. I like to think he's proud of me. I like to think he's watching from wherever he is, smiling that gentle smile of his, saying, "That's my Maggie." I always knew she was stronger than she thought. The truth is, I didn't find strength in his death. I found it in his life. He showed me what it meant to serve others, to work hard, to care about your community. He showed me that a simple life lived with love and purpose is worth more than all the wealth in the world. I'm just continuing what he started. I'm just trying to live in a way that would make him proud. Emma and Jack are teenagers now. They're growing up so fast, Michael tells me in our weekly video calls. Emma wants to be a veterinarian. Jack loves art. They ask about me, about the children here, about when I'm coming home for a visit. Home. That word means something different to me now. Ohio is home because my family is there. But Hope Haven is also home because my heart is here. I've learned that home isn't just a place. It's wherever you're needed, wherever you're loved, wherever you can make a difference. I've started training younger nurses to take over some of my responsibilities. Not because I'm leaving, but because I'm 66 now, and I need to think about the future. I won't be able to work these long hours forever. My knees hurt. My back aches. I get tired more easily than I used to. But I've also learned that I'm tougher than I thought. That I can handle heat and discomfort and emotional exhaustion. That I can look at suffering without turning away. That I can hold a dying child and not fall apart, because they need me to be strong. Last month, Patricia told me something that made me cry. She said that in the 3 years since I arrived, our clinic's mortality rate had dropped by 60%. 60% more children were surviving because we could provide better care, faster intervention, more consistent treatment. "You've saved hundreds of lives, Margaret," she said. Hundreds. I don't think of it that way. I just think about each individual child. Each fever brought down. Each infection treated. Each small victory against suffering. The numbers are too big to comprehend. But the faces, the names, the stories, those I carry with me. There's a new volunteer arriving next month. Her name is Dorothy. She's 68, a widow from Canada, a retired doctor. She heard about Hope Haven from a friend and felt called to come. We talked on the phone, and I heard something in her voice that I recognized. The same thing that was in my voice 3 years ago. A mix of fear and hope, grief and determination. "Is it worth it?" she asked me. "Is it really worth leaving everything behind?" I thought about her question for a long moment. "It depends on what everything means to you," I finally said. "If everything is comfort and safety and familiar routines, then maybe not. But if everything is finding meaning, making a difference, discovering who you really are, then yes. Absolutely yes. She's taking the same leap I took. And I'll be here to welcome her, to guide her, to show her that it's possible to build a new life even when you thought your life was over." I want to leave you with something I've learned, something I wish I had known when I was sitting in Michael's house, feeling like my life had ended. Your story isn't over until it's over. And even when you think it's over, even when everything you built has fallen apart, there's still another chapter waiting to be written. You just have to be brave enough to pick up the pen. Losing David was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It shattered my world. It broke my heart in ways I didn't think were possible. And I will carry that loss with me for the rest of my life. But coming to Hope Haven, serving these children, discovering this purpose, this has been one of the best things that ever happened to me. And it never would have happened if I hadn't lost David. I never would have been available. I never would have been searching for meaning. I never would have been desperate enough to say yes to something so far outside my comfort zone. Does that mean I'm glad David died? Of course not. I would give anything to have him back. But I can't have him back. So I have to choose what to do with the life I have left. I can spend it mourning what I lost, or I can spend it honoring what we had by living fully, by serving others, by making the world a little bit better. I chose the second option, and it has made all the difference. If you're going through loss right now, if you're in the middle of grief so thick you can't see through it, please hear me. It won't always feel this way. The pain won't disappear, but it will transform. It will become something you can carry without being crushed by it. And when you're ready, when the fog starts to lift, look around. Look for the next thing. Look for the place where your pain can become purpose. Look for the way your story can help write someone else's. Maybe it's not Africa. Maybe it's your own neighborhood. Maybe it's starting a support group for other widows. Maybe it's volunteering at a school or a hospital or a shelter. Maybe it's going back to school yourself, learning something new, trying something you've always wanted to try. The point isn't what you do. The point is that you do something. That you choose to keep living instead of just existing. That you honor your loved one not by shutting down, but by opening up to all the life that's still possible. Grace came to me yesterday with a drawing. She draws constantly, this child. Beautiful, colorful pictures of flowers and houses and people holding hands. "This is for you, Auntie Margaret," she said, handing me the paper. It was a picture of the two of us. We were standing in front of the clinic, both smiling, the sun shining overhead. At the top, in her careful handwriting, she had written, "Thank you for choosing us." I hung it on my wall, next to the photo of David. 2 parts of my life. 2 sources of love. Not competing, but complementing. Both precious. Both essential to who I am. Thank you for choosing us. That's what Grace said. But the truth is, they chose me too. These children, this place, this purpose, it chose me when I needed it most. When I was drowning in grief and didn't know how to find solid ground again. I'm not special. I'm not a saint. I'm just a widow from Ohio who said yes when life offered her an unexpected opportunity. I'm just a woman who decided that 63 wasn't too old to start over. I'm just someone who learned that the worst thing that happens to you doesn't have to define you. You can turn grief into mission. You can turn loss into legacy. You can turn the end of one chapter into the beginning of another. 3 years ago, I got on a plane by myself for the first time, heading to a country I'd never seen, to do work I wasn't sure I could handle. I was terrified. I was grieving. I was uncertain about everything. But I went anyway. And it changed my life. Not because Africa is magical. Not because volunteering solves all your problems. But because I learned that I was stronger than my sadness. That I had more to give than I thought. That my story wasn't over, it was just different than I had planned. Your story isn't over either. Whatever you're facing right now, whatever loss you're carrying, whatever pain is weighing you down, it's not the end. It's just a chapter. A hard chapter, maybe the hardest. But not the last one. There are still beautiful things waiting for you. There is still joy to be found. There are still people who need exactly what you have to offer. There is still purpose with your name on it. You just have to be willing to find it. You just have to be brave enough to say yes when the opportunity comes. You just have to trust that life, even broken open, can still bloom into something beautiful. I'm 66 years old. I live in a simple room in an orphanage in Uganda. I work long hours in a clinic with limited resources. I'm thousands of miles from my children and grandchildren. I'm still grieving the love of my life. And I've never been happier. Because I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. I'm serving. I'm making a difference. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is my story. A widow who turned her grief into a global mission. A woman who discovered that the second half of her life could be just as meaningful as the first. A person who learned that love doesn't end with death. It just changes form. And it can be your story too. Not the same details, but the same truth. That loss can lead to purpose. That grief can transform into mission. That your life, even after devastation, can still matter. So whatever you're facing, don't give up. Don't accept that this pain is all that's left for you. Keep searching. Keep looking for the next thing. Keep your heart open to possibilities you haven't imagined yet. Your mission is out there. Your purpose is waiting. Your next chapter is ready to be written. You just have to be brave enough to begin. This story is dedicated to everyone who has ever wondered if their best days are behind them. They're not. They're just waiting for you to find them. And to David, wherever you are, thank you for teaching me that love is not about holding on, but about having the courage to let go and live fully in your absence. This mission, this life, this purpose, it's all because of you.